The Search for the Copper Scroll by Xavier Pirotta. Level 2 Fiction Express. Chapter 1 Fierce Alley. The afternoon sun was so bright Aliyah could hardly see. The light was bouncing off the bare white rocks of the desert around her. She wished she had sunglasses like the ones she'd seen that English girl wearing, the daughter of the man who dug in the earth for long-forgotten things. Owning a pair of sunglasses was just a dream, of course. No one in Aliyah's extended family owned a pair of sunglasses. They had barely enough money to feed and clothe themselves. They grew their own beans and vegetables. The men in her family hunted for wild rabbits. Aliyah's grandmother wove the cloth for their clothes. If one of the family needed the doctor, they had no choice but to pay with one of their goats. The goats! Aliyah looked around her in alarm. She was supposed to be looking after them, and here she was, daydreaming again. She sprang to her feet, shielding her eyes against the sun. The family had 5 precious goats. Aliyah counted them. 1, 2, 3, 4. But where was the 5th one? The buck with big, curved horns they called Fierce Alley. Aliyah couldn't see him anywhere. Her mouth dry with fear, she called out, "Alley! Alley! Where are you? Alley, show yourself at once!" There was no bleating answer from Fierce Alley. Locking the other 4 goats in a stone shepherd's hut with the last of her water, Aliyah set out looking for him. "Alley! Alley!" A head popped up from behind a low rubble wall. "You haven't lost that old goat again." It was Mehedi, Aliyah's twin brother. Like her, he was small for his age and stick-thin. He had beautiful copper-brown skin and eyes that sparkled with mischief. "I only got distracted for a minute," complained Aliyah. "Don't cry," said Mehedi. "I'm not crying," snapped Aliyah, wiping her nose. "I'm just saying, it's not fair." "Come on," said Mehedi. "There's only one place Fierce Alley would have gone in this heat. Down to the stream in the wadi." He hopped nimbly over the wall, and together the twins scrambled down the shallow ravine. Neither of them wore sandals, but that didn't matter. The soles of their feet were so tough and hardened, they didn't need footwear. "Watch out for hunters," warned Mehedi. "I've seen a lot of them around today. You don't want to accidentally be hit with lead pellets." Fierce Alley was, just like Mehedi had said, lapping up water from the stream. "Alley!" called Aliyah. "You rascal!" The goat looked up at her with small, mean eyes. "Come here," said Aliyah, but Fierce Alley was in one of his stubborn moods. He shook the water out of his pointy beard, pounded the ground with his front hoofs, and bolted in the opposite direction. Aliyah and Mehedi gave chase. "Alley! Alley!" The goat leapt nimbly over jagged boulders and thorny bushes, the bell on his collar jingling. He stopped only once to tear a leaf off a plant, chewed it for a moment, then spat it out and ran on. Aliyah was drenched with sweat by now. It was getting into her eyes, making it hard to see. "Where are we?" she gasped, stopping to get her breath back. "I've never been to this part of the wadi before." Mehedi squinted and looked around him. They were in scrubland under a tall cliff. There was a gully under the cliff where the water had run dry, leaving only smooth, worn stones and dried moss. "I don't think we should be here," said Aliyah. She pointed to a shiny new metal sign on a pole. "Private property. Keep out. All trespassers will be prosecuted." "But which part is private?" said Mehedi hotly. "The gully? The cliff? I didn't even know you could own open land. I thought it belonged to everyone." "You're obviously wrong," said Aliyah. Mehedi stuck out his chin. "I'm ignoring that stupid sign. We have to get Fierce Ali back or we'll be in trouble with Pa." "You'll be in trouble." The goat was now standing on a hillock. Front hooves wide apart, he glared at Aliyah and Mehedi, daring them to try and catch them. "Maa!" Aliyah held out a piece of flatbread. "Here you are, Fierce Ali. Food! Food!" The goat's eyes followed the bread as Aliyah waved it slowly around. She walked slowly up to him, making soothing noises with her mouth. "Good goat, good goat." She was almost within touching distance of Ali's rope collar. She reached out. "Good goat." Suddenly, the sound of a hunter's gunshot rang out. Fierce Ali snapped out his bread-induced trance. In a flash, he turned and bolted towards the cliff, his hooves kicking up dust. Within moments, he'd vanished into a jagged, narrow opening in the rocks. Still holding the bread, Aliyah gave chase. Mehedi overtook her. "We'll never find him if he gets lost in there. The cliffs are honeycombed with tunnels. Come on!" They reached the crack in the rocks. It was barely wide enough for even stick-thin children, but they managed to squeeze through, and it was pitch dark. Aliyah stuffed the flatbread back in her pocket. She could hear Ali's bell, and she let the sound guide her. They were in a narrow tunnel, which gradually widened enough so that they could stand next to each other. Mehedi felt in his pocket for matches and lit one. They were in a small cave with a very low roof full of tooth-sharp pointed stones. Aliyah looked around on the ground for some twigs. Perhaps they could make a torch. "Hey, look," said Mehedi. "There's a modern torch here, one of those that works with batteries." He flicked the rusty switch, but the batteries had long since died. "I wonder who left it here," he said. "An American or a German, I bet. Or perhaps one of those Englishmen who digs up the ground to find ancient artifacts." "And I'm wondering where Fierce Ali is," snapped Aliyah, bunching up twigs from the ground to make a torch. "Put that useless thing down." She could hear the goat's bell tinkling somewhere in the dark. "He's gone down another tunnel. Look," said Mehedi as Aliyah held up the flaming torch. Aliyah saw the opening. Not another narrow tunnel. Aliyah hated tunnels. She hated being trapped in dark places. At home, she never slept indoors. She much preferred falling asleep under the stars, feeling the cool, fresh air on her face. "Come on," urged Mehedi, taking the torch from her. The second tunnel was even narrower than the first, not much more than a crack in the rocks, a crevice. Aliyah had to suck her tummy in to get through. She concentrated on the sound of Ali's bell to stop herself from panicking. A breeze threatened to blow out the torch, but after much twisting and turning, the tunnel led them out into a second cave. And there was Fierce Ali, noisily chewing on something on the sandy floor. "Paper," said Mehedi, holding out the torch. Aliyah stared at the goat. It was chewing on a long scroll unfurled on the cave floor. "Not paper," she said. "Parchment." "Ali, stop! Here, eat my bread instead." The goat left the scroll and snatched the bread out of her hand. Aliyah looked around her. The scroll had fallen out of a smashed clay jar standing on a stone pillar. There were still some scrolls in the jar, but most had scattered on the floor. "Look," said Aliyah. "Some scrolls are parchment, but some are animal skins." "And this one is copper," said Mehedi. "It's covered in strange writing." "There are carvings on the pillars too," said Aliyah. "They look like symbols." Mehedi put down the copper scroll. "And the cave wall is covered in drawings." He held up his torch so that they could see the wall better. The artist had drawn a scene with people in long flowing robes. They were grouped around an open tomb, their eyes drawn in thick black lines. A figure wrapped in thick bandages was tottering stiffly out of the tomb, its hands held out to those of the people watching outside. "What does that picture mean?" asked Aliyah. "Who are these people? Who painted them?" "I have no idea," replied Mehedi, "but I think we should take the scrolls." "They might not be ours to take," said Aliyah. "If this land is private property, then the jar and the scrolls belong to whoever owns the land." "We don't know if this cave is private property," argued Mehedi. "And those scrolls are worth something. I'm not going to pass up the chance to make some money. I need new clothes, and we could buy Ma a new cooking pot. You could buy yourself one of those books you've always wanted, and a pair of sunglasses like the one that English girl has." "Perhaps," said Aliyah, tempted. "And it would be a shame to leave the scrolls behind. Another goat might find its way in here and eat them." "Come on," agreed Mehedi. "Let's take them before Fierce Ali devours them. I promise you, Aliyah, we're going to make serious money out of this. A shepherd found some scrolls like these a few years ago, and he made a small fortune." Voting time! Reveal the winner. What happens next? Vote A. Aliyah and Mehedi takes the scrolls. Vote B. As Aliyah and Mehedi approach the pillar, it sinks into the ground, taking the scrolls with it. Vote C. The hunter follows Aliyah and Mehedi into the cave and takes the scrolls. The winner will be revealed in the next chapter. Bye-bye.